Clockmaker's Secret, a cozy mystery story for adults. Chapter 1. The Letter in the Clock. The village of Fernmere had long been a place where time seemed to slow. Cobblestone lanes wound between mossy stone cottages, and the scent of wood smoke mingled with honeysuckle in the early evening air. It was the sort of place where everyone knew your name, and news travelled faster than the post. Elsie Hart had not planned on returning. At 62, retired from a long career as a librarian in Bath, she had intended to spend her days reading historical biographies and sipping chamomile tea. But the letter changed everything. Her uncle Edwin, whom she hadn't seen since she was a girl, had passed away and left her his clock shop, Hart and Ticker. The envelope was thick and yellowed with age, sealed with wax in a style long out of fashion. Inside was a simple letter. Dearest Elsie, if you are reading this, I have gone. The shop, as strange as it may sound, is now yours. I trust you'll take care of it and discover what I never could. There is a secret in the grandfather clock by the back wall. Time is more complicated than we think. Edwin Hart. A secret? It sounded absurd, like something from a mystery novel, but curiosity, that old and faithful companion, stirred within her, and so 2 weeks later she stood in the middle of a dusty old clock shop with motes of sunlight dancing through the windows. The clocks ticked and tocked in a comforting, offbeat symphony. The grandfather clock in question stood alone near the back, tall and regal, with brass hands and a faded oak body. Elsie ran her fingers over the carved surface, half expecting it to chime in protest. She found the compartment by accident. While polishing the base, her cloth caught on a slight ridge, barely perceptible. With a firm press, a panel slid open. Inside, wrapped in oilcloth, was a brittle parchment envelope. It held a single letter and a small, folded map. The letter read, "To he who finds this, I am Thomas Brindle, clockmaker to Lord Whitlow, year 1823. This map leads to what was hidden when the tower bell stopped ringing. Guard it well. Time remembers everything." Elsie stared at the handwriting, looping and formal, nearly 200 years old. And so began the unraveling. Chapter 2. The Watchmaker and the Cat. The next morning, Elsie walked to the neighboring shop, a small repair store run by a man named Simon Bell. He was a quiet soul in his late 40s, always seen with wire-rimmed glasses and smudges of grease on his sleeves. He glanced up as she entered, his brown eyes blinking behind his lenses. "I'm Elsie Hart. I've inherited the clock shop next door." Simon nodded. "Ah, sorry to hear about Edwin. He was eccentric." She smiled. "He left me a mystery. I was hoping you might know something about old clockmakers or hidden compartments." Simon looked intrigued. She showed him the letter and map. He whistled low. "Thomas Brindle. That's a name I haven't heard since trade school. He designed the central tower clock in Whitlow Manor, abandoned now, I think." As they talked, a grey tabby cat hopped onto the counter. "Oh, who's this?" "Thimble," Simon replied, giving the cat a scratch behind the ears. "She's more interested in gears than mice." Elsie chuckled. "She and I may get along just fine." Simon studied the map, brow furrowed. "This marking here looks like the Whitlow bell tower. If that's where the trail leads, you'll need help getting in. The place has been closed for decades." Elsie hesitated. "Would you come with me?" Simon gave a rare smile. "Sure, I've always wanted to see inside." Chapter 3. The Bell Tower. Whitlow Manor loomed on a small hill outside Fernmere. Once a grand estate, it had been shuttered for over 50 years. The gardens were now wild and ivy clawed at the stone facade. The gate creaked open reluctantly. Thimble, who had decided to join, trotted along confidently. The bell tower rose at the manor's rear, a cylindrical structure with narrow windows and a rusted iron door. Simon picked the old lock with practiced care. Inside, the air was thick with dust and the scent of forgotten history. A spiral staircase wound upward, each step groaning beneath their feet. At the top, they found the great bell, silent and tarnished. Below it, tucked beneath floorboards loosened by age, they found a box. Inside were a small brass key, a folded journal, a wooden pendant carved with the letter B. Simon opened the journal, reading aloud, April 1823. Lord Whitlow has forbidden mention of the missing hour. The bell rang 13 times last eve. Brindle believes it was no accident. He speaks of time's fracture, of a moment stolen. He fears someone seeks to control time itself. Elsie felt a chill. The missing hour? Simon nodded. An old legend. People said a whole hour vanished one night. The villagers couldn't explain it. Clocks went mad. Some blamed spirits. She looked at the pendant. And this key? Simon turned it over. Too small for a door. Maybe a clock? Chapter 4. Whispers of the Past. Back in the shop, Elsie sat in Edwin's old armchair, journal in her lap. She read of Brindle's obsession with temporal resonance, how certain materials, if tuned correctly, could remember time. Ludicrous, she muttered, yet she couldn't deny what they'd seen. The brass key eventually fit a locked drawer inside a battered wall clock. It revealed old blueprints, detailed diagrams of a timepiece unlike any she'd ever seen. One note was underlined in red, install only if the hour chimes 13. Reset using harmonic pendulum. The next day, they heard whispers in the village. Mrs. Tiller, the florist, claimed her clocks had all chimed 13 the night before. The pub owner said his wall clock stopped at midnight for no reason. Something's happening, Simon murmured. Elsie felt the pull of fate, like a gear locking into place. Chapter 5. Time's Harmonic, following. Brindle's notes. They assembled a device from spare parts, gears, crystals, and a pendulum tuned to resonate at a frequency no longer used in modern clocks. Simon soldered while Elsie read instructions aloud. I feel like we're building a time machine, she joked. In a way we are. When the device was ready, they installed it in the grandfather clock. As it ticked, a low hum filled the room, gentle, steady, almost melodic. Thimble leapt onto the windowsill, eyes wide. Then the clock struck 13, and the world shimmered. Just for a moment, everything stood still. The ticking ceased, then resumed. Outside, people were confused. It was 3:14 p.m. a moment ago, but the town square's clock now read 2:14, an hour reclaimed. Chapter 6. The Last Entry. The journal's final pages revealed that Brindle had sealed the hour in a temporal loop, afraid of Lord Whitlow's experiments. He left clues in the hope that someone kind and curious would undo the loop when the time was right. Elsie looked to Simon. I suppose that someone is us. In the days that followed, time in Fernmere seemed lighter. People felt more rested. Gardens bloomed brighter. A collective tension none had known they carried seemed to melt. Simon gave Elsie the wooden pendant, now warm to the touch. A token from the past, he said. She wore it always. Epilogue. The shop at the edge of time. Heart and Ticker reopened under new signs. Heart and Bell. Time repaired. Locals came for clockwork fixes and stayed for stories. Thimble became the official shopkeeper, often found napping in the window. Elsie sometimes caught the grandfather clock chiming 13, but only when the sun hit just right. She no longer feared the future. After all, time remembered everything, and now so did she.